Hey there, everyone. Get ready, because I'm about to tell you an awesome story that's full of surprises. It all started on a super sunny afternoon in my little neighborhood. My name's Jake, and I'm just a regular guy. I'm not loud or fancy or anything like that. I'm the kind of person who likes fixing cars in my garage and keeping things chill. But my favorite thing? Swimming in my backyard pool. It's not some big, shiny pool with lights and waterfalls. Nope, it's just a simple one perfect for splashing around and cooling off when the sun gets too hot. I loved that pool. It was my happy spot. But not everyone felt the same way about it. Oh no, trouble was coming, and I didn't even know it yet. Let me introduce you to someone. There was this lady in my neighborhood, let's call her Karen. She wasn't just any lady. She was the boss of our homeowners association, or HOA for short. That's a group that makes rules for everyone on our street. Karen acted like she owned the whole place. She'd walk around with her big clipboard, pointing at things and telling people what to do. Cut your grass, she'd yell. Move that trash can, she'd snap. Most people didn't argue with her. They'd just shrug, roll their eyes, and do what she said. She was loud and bossy, and she loved being in charge. Me. I didn't really care about her rules. I stayed quiet and minded my own business. But that was about to change big time. Here's the funny part, nobody thought I could stand up to Karen. Not a single person. I mean, think about it. I'm just Jake, the guy who's always tinkering with cars or floating in his pool. I don't yell or fight or make a fuss. People probably thought, Jake? Against Karen? No way. Karen had all the power, or at least, that's what she believed. She'd boss everyone around, and they'd listen. But here's a secret, I had something she didn't expect. Something sneaky and smart was hiding up my sleeve, like a surprise waiting to jump out. She had no idea what was coming her way. Are you starting to get curious? Awesome, because this is only the beginning. Picture this sunny day. I was outside, wiping down an old car I'd been fixing up. The sun was shining bright, and my pool was sparkling in the backyard. It was one of those perfect days where everything feels right. I was thinking about jumping in the water later, maybe even inviting my buddy Tom over for a swim. Life was good. But then, I saw her, Karen. She was marching down the street, her clipboard tucked under her arm, her nose stuck up in the air. She looked like she was on a mission. I didn't think much of it at first. She was always bugging someone about something. Maybe she'd yell at Mr. Johnson about his messy yard again. But nope. This time, she wasn't heading for Mr. Johnson. She was coming straight for me. I kept working on my car, pretending I didn't see her. Maybe she'd just walk by, I thought. But no such luck. She stopped right at my fence, her shoes tapping on the sidewalk. I could feel her staring at me. Finally, I looked up. Her eyes were squinting, and her mouth was all tight, like she'd just bitten into a sour lemon. Jake, she said, her voice sharp and loud. I nodded, trying to be nice. Hey, Karen, I said back, keeping it cool. But inside, I was wondering what she wanted. She didn't waste any time. She pointed at my pool and said, that thing, it's a problem. My pool? A problem? I didn't get it. It was clean and nice, just sitting there. But Karen didn't care what I thought. She was about to start something big, and I had no clue how crazy things were going to get. See, Karen wasn't like most neighbors. Most people might say hi or wave when they see you. Not her. She loved making rules and telling everyone to follow them. She'd write letters and stick them in your mailbox if your house wasn't perfect. One time, she told Mrs. Carter her flowers were too tall. Too tall? Who even cares about that? But that's Karen for you. She thought she was the queen of the street. And now, she'd set her sights on me and my pool. I didn't know it yet, but this was the start of a huge fight, one I wasn't planning on losing. Here's the wild part, I didn't look like someone who'd take on Karen. I'm not tall or loud or scary. I'm just Jake, the guy who likes cars and swimming. If you ask my neighbors, they'd probably say, Jake? He's nice, but he's not a fighter. And Karen? She was the opposite. She was loud and pushy, and she always got her way. People listened to her because they didn't want the hassle. She thought she could scare me too. She thought I'd just nod and say, "Okay, Karen," like everyone else. But she didn't know me as well as she thought. I wasn't going to let her boss me around, not this time. So, there I was, standing by my car, with Karen glaring at me and my pool. The sun was still shining, birds were chirping, and everything seemed normal. But it wasn't. Something big was brewing. I had a feeling deep down that this wasn't going to end quietly. Karen thought she had all the power, but I had a trick or two she'd never guess. What was it? Oh, you'll find out soon, I promise. This story's got twists and turns, and I can't wait to tell you what happened next. Before we keep going, I've got a quick question for you. Have you ever had a nosy neighbor like Karen? Someone who's always in your business, telling you what to do? Drop your answer in the comments below. I bet some of you have stories just as wild as mine. Oh, and if you're liking this so far, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming. Trust me, it gets even better. Okay, let's jump right into the action. One day, something crazy happened. I was outside, just hanging out near my house, when Karen came stomping toward me. She didn't walk like a normal person, no way. She stormed up to my fence like she was mad at the whole world. Her face? It was redder than a big, juicy tomato. I could tell she was ready to yell about something. And guess what? She had her clipboard with her. She held it up high, waving it around like it was some kind of weapon. "Jake," she shouted, her voice all sharp and loud. I froze for a second, wondering what I did wrong. Then she pointed at my pool, my awesome, cool pool, and said something wild. "Your pool's an eyesore," she snapped. "It's breaking Rule 47B of the HOA code. You need to drain it, or I'll fine you." I just stood there, blinking at her. An eyesore? My pool? No way. My pool was super clean. The water sparkled like glass, and I'd even built a neat little deck around it all by myself. It wasn't messy or ugly, it was perfect. But Karen didn't care about that. Not even a little bit. She just smirked at me, like she knew she was the boss. "You've got 3 days, or else," she said, her voice all mean and sneaky. I didn't know what to say at first. I mean, I wasn't trying to cause trouble. So I tried to talk to her, nice and calm, you know. "Karen," I said, keeping my voice soft, "the pool's fine. It's not hurting anyone." I thought maybe she'd listen if I explained it. Maybe she'd see that my pool wasn't a big deal. But nope. She didn't even let me finish. She cut me off fast, like my words didn't matter at all. "Rules are rules, Jake," she said, her eyes squinting at me. "You're nobody special." Ouch. That hurt. It felt like a big, sharp poke right in my chest. Nobody special? Wow, that was mean. Then, just like that, she turned around and marched off. Her shoes clicked on the ground, and her clipboard swung by her side. She left me standing there, feeling all hot and mad. My face was probably red too, not from the sun, but because I was steaming inside. She thought she'd won. She thought I'd just give up, drain my pool, and do whatever she said. That's what most people did around here. When Karen barked orders, they'd nod and obey, even if they didn't like it. She was used to getting her way. But me? Oh, I wasn't like that. Not this time. Something in me said, "No way, Karen. I'm not letting you boss me around." Let's back up a bit so you can see why this was such a big deal. Karen wasn't just some grumpy lady. She was the queen of the HOA, the Homeowners Association. That's the group that makes rules for our neighborhood. Silly rules, sometimes, like how tall your grass can be or where you park your bike. Karen loved those rules more than anything. She'd walk around every day, checking on people, writing stuff down on that clipboard of hers. If you broke even a tiny rule, she'd be at your door, yelling about it. Everyone knew her, and most people were a little scared of her. She acted like she was in charge of everything, and I mean everything. But my pool? That was my special thing. I worked hard to make it nice. After a long day fixing cars, I'd jump in and float around. It was my way to relax, to forget about any problems. And now Karen wanted to take that away? Just because of some dumb rule? No, that wasn't fair. I looked at my pool after she left. the water all shiny and blue. It didn't look like an eyesore to me. It looked awesome. But Karen didn't see it that way. To her, it was a problem, and I was a problem too. Her words kept bouncing around in my head. You've got 3 days, or else. Or else what? She'd fine me? That means I'd have to pay money just for having my pool. That made me even madder. I didn't have extra cash to throw away because of her silly rules. And you're nobody special? That part really got me. She said it like I didn't matter, like I was just some guy she could push around. Well, guess what, Karen? I wasn't going to let that slide. I wasn't going to be her little puppet. I could have done what she wanted, you know. I could have grabbed the hose, drained the pool, and let her win. It would have been easy. No fighting, no arguing, just do it and be done. But every time I thought about it, I got this twisty feeling in my stomach. Why should I have to give up something I love just because she says so? Why does she get to decide everything? The more I thought about it, the more I knew I couldn't let her beat me. This wasn't just about a pool anymore. It was about standing up for myself. Karen thought she had me figured out. She thought I'd be like everyone else, quiet, scared, ready to follow her orders. She'd smirk and strut away, thinking she was the big winner. But she didn't know me as well as she thought. I wasn't going to roll over and obey. Nope, not this time. I didn't have a plan yet, but I knew one thing for sure, I wasn't giving up my pool without a fight. She wanted a battle? Well, she was about to get one. The air felt different after she left. The sun was still out, and the birds were still chirping, but something had changed. It was like a storm was coming, not in the sky, but between me and Karen. I didn't know how I'd fight back yet, but I could feel it building inside me. She'd picked the wrong guy to mess with. My pool wasn't going anywhere, and neither was I. She thought she could scare me, but she was wrong. This was just the start, and I was ready to show her she wasn't as powerful as she thought. Okay, let's keep this story rolling. Days went by after Karen yelled at me about my pool, and guess what? She didn't stop. Not even a little bit. She kept coming after me like a dog chasing a ball. She sent me nasty letters, mean ones. They'd show up in my mailbox, written in big, angry letters. Drain your pool, Jake, they said. You're breaking the rules. She even stuck a fine on my mailbox one day. A fine is when you have to pay money for doing something wrong. It was a piece of paper that said I owed her cash just for keeping my pool. Can you believe that? My pool wasn't hurting anyone, but she acted like I'd done something awful. It didn't stop there. Karen got sneaky. She started talking to the neighbors, people who lived on my street. She'd whisper to them, pointing at my house, making them think I was the bad guy. Soon, some of them started glaring at me. I'd walk outside to get my mail, and there they were, Mrs. Carter with her squinty eyes, Mr. Johnson with his grumpy frown. They looked at me like I'd ruined the whole street, all because of my pool. It made me feel small, like I didn't belong. But it also made me mad. Really mad. I had a choice, you know. I could have given up. Draining the pool would have been the easy way out. Just pull the plug, let the water go, and poof, no more problem. Karen would smile, the neighbors would stop staring, and everything would be quiet again. It sounded simple, right? A quick fix to make her happy. But every time I thought about it, something inside me went snap. It was like a little fire started burning in my chest. No way was I letting her win. Not like that. Not without a fight. She couldn't just boss me around and take away something I loved. I wasn't going to let her have the last word. So, I got smart. I decided to fight back, but not with yelling or arguing. Nope, I had a better idea. I started digging. Not in the dirt, silly. I mean digging through the rules. The HOA, the Homeowners Association, had a big book full of them. It was like a giant list of do's and don'ts for our neighborhood. Karen always waved that book around like it was her superpower. She thought she knew every word in it. But I wasn't so sure. I grabbed my copy of the rulebook and sat down at my kitchen table. I flipped through the pages, reading every tiny word, looking for something, anything that could help me. It took a while. The book was boring, full of stuff like no loud music after 9 p.m. and keep your grass short. My eyes got tired, But I kept going. And then bam, I found it. A little secret hiding in the rules. It was like finding a treasure chest. Rule 47b, the one Karen kept talking about, said you couldn't have permanent structures without asking the HOA first. A permanent structure is something big and stuck in the ground, like a shed or a house. But my pool? It wasn't like that at all. It was an above-ground pool, one of those you can put up and take down. It wasn't permanent. Not even close. Karen had messed up. She didn't read the rules as well as she thought. I sat back in my chair, grinning. I had her. This little loophole, a fancy word for a mistake she missed, was my weapon. It was proof she was wrong. My pool didn't break Rule 47b because it wasn't permanent. She couldn't make me drain it. She couldn't find me either. I wanted to jump up and shout, "Take that, Karen." But I didn't. Oh no, I was smarter than that. I kept it a secret. I didn't tell her what I'd found, not yet. I wanted to surprise her when the time was right. So I stayed quiet, acting like nothing had changed. Meanwhile, Karen kept strutting around like she'd already won. She'd walk past my house with that big smirk on her face, her clipboard swinging by her side. She'd stop and stare at my pool, then shake her head like I was some naughty kid. She even knocked on my door once, holding another nasty letter. 2 days left, Jake, she said, her voice all smug. Better get that pool drained, or you'll be sorry. I just nodded, keeping my face calm. Okay, Karen, I said, nice and polite. But inside, I was laughing. She had no clue what was coming. No clue at all. Every day, she got bolder. She'd talk to the neighbors louder, making sure I could hear. Jake's breaking the rules, she'd say. He'll learn soon enough. The fines kept coming too, more papers stuck to my mailbox, telling me to pay her money. The neighbors' glares got worse. One time, Mr. Johnson even yelled across the street, "Just drain it, Jake. Stop making trouble." It was tough. I felt like everyone was against me. But that little rule I'd found? It kept me going. It was my secret power, and I held onto it tight. I watched Karen like a hawk. Every time she walked by, every time she smirked, I took note. She thought she was so smart, so in charge. But she didn't know I was getting ready. I wasn't just sitting there feeling mad, I was planning. I'd read that rule book over and over, making sure I had it right. Rule 47b was my ticket to winning, and I wasn't going to mess it up. Karen thought she had all the power, but I was about to flip everything upside down. The days kept ticking by, and the tension grew. That's a fancy word for how nervous and excited I felt. Karen kept pushing me, thinking I'd give in. But I didn't. I stayed strong, keeping my secret close. She had no idea I'd found her mistake. She had no idea I was ready to fight back. Each nasty letter, each mean look from the neighbors, it just made me more sure. I wasn't draining my pool. I wasn't paying her fines. I was going to win this, and she'd never see it coming. All right, here we go, this is the big moment you've been waiting for. The day finally came, the HOA meeting. HOA stands for Homeowners Association, that group Karen ran with all her rules. She called this meeting special, just to talk about violations. And guess who she meant by that? Me. Yep, it was all about my pool. She wanted to make a big show of it, to tell everyone I was bad and needed to be punished. I knew it was coming, so I got ready. This was my chance to fight back, and I wasn't going to miss it. The meeting was in a little room at the community center. When I walked in, it was packed full of neighbors. There were so many people, all sitting in chairs, whispering to each other. I could hear them as I stepped inside. "There's Jake," someone said. "What's he gonna do?" another whispered. Their eyes followed me, like I was some kind of troublemaker. I felt my tummy flip a little, but I kept my head up. I wasn't scared, not too much, anyway. I had my secret weapon, and I was ready to use it. Up at the front of the room stood Karen. She looked like a queen on her throne, all proud and bossy. Her clipboard was in her hand, and she had that sneaky smirk on her face, the one she always wore when she thought she'd won. She waited until everyone was quiet, then started talking. "Jake's pool is a disgrace," she said, her voice loud and mean. "He's ignored my orders. He didn't drain it like I told him to. It's time for consequences. She looked around the room, nodding like everyone would agree with her. The neighbors shifted in their seats, some nodding back, some just staring. She thought she had them all on her side. She thought she had me beat. But I wasn't going to let her win that easy. My heart was pounding like boom, boom, boom in my chest, but I stood up anyway. I took a deep breath and kept my voice steady, even though I was nervous inside. "Hold on, Karen," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Let's talk facts." Her smirk started to slip. She didn't expect me to talk back, not like this. I reached into my bag and pulled out the HOA handbook. Yep, that big rulebook she loved so much, I brought it with me. It was my proof, my receipts, my way to show she was wrong. I held the book up so everyone could see it. The room got super quiet, like nobody even breathed. Karen's eyes got big, but she still tried to look tough. I opened the book to the page I'd marked and started reading. Rule 47B says permanent structures need approval, I said, keeping it simple. That means big things stuck in the ground, like a shed or a garage. But my pool? It's above ground. It's not permanent at all. You can take it down and move it. So, Karen, you've got no case. I looked right at her, watching her face change. The neighbors started whispering again, louder this time. They were surprised. Karen's face turned purple like a grape about to pop. She didn't know what to say at first. "That's ridiculous," she sputtered, her voice all shaky. She waved her hand like she could make my words go away. But I wasn't done, not even close. I took another step forward, feeling braver now. "Oh, and one more thing," I said, smiling just a little. "I'm suing you, Karen. Yep, I'm taking you to court for harassment and false fines. See you there." Boom. That was it, the big surprise. The room exploded with noise. People gasped, like they couldn't believe what they heard. Someone even said, "Whoa," out loud. Karen's clipboard slipped from her hand and hit the floor with a loud clack. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She looked like a fish out of water, flapping around with nothing to say. She thought she could bully me, push me around, and make me obey her silly rules. She thought I'd just give up and let her win. But nope, I flipped the game. I turned it all around on her, right there in front of everyone. The neighbors were staring, wide-eyed, some smiling now. They didn't expect this from quiet little Jake. Let's paint the picture for a second. Imagine that room, chairs all lined up, people packed in tight. Karen up front, all smug and sure of herself, ready to drop the hammer on me. She had her fancy clipboard, her mean words all planned out. She thought this meeting was her big moment to show everyone who's boss. And me? Just a regular guy in a t-shirt, standing up with a book in my hand. Nobody thought I'd fight back, not like this. But when I read that rule, when I said I was suing her, everything changed. It was like a superhero movie moment, where the good guy surprises the bad guy with a secret power. Karen tried to talk again. "You can't do that," she yelled, but it sounded weak. Her purple face and shaky voice made her look silly now, not scary. The neighbors weren't nodding at her anymore. Some were looking at me, like, "Wow, Jake's got guts." Others were whispering to each other, pointing at the handbook in my hand. They could see I was right. Rule 47B didn't work on my pool, and Karen had messed up. She'd been so busy bossing everyone that she didn't even read her own rules right. I stood there, feeling tall for the first time in a while. My heart was still thumping, but now it was from excitement, not nerves. I dropped my big reveal, and it hit hard. Suing her? That wasn't just talk, I meant it. She'd sent me those nasty letters, stuck fines on my mailbox, turned the neighbors against me. That was harassment, being mean and unfair over and over. And those fines? They were fake, because my pool didn't break the rules. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Court was coming, and she'd have to answer for everything. The meeting room buzzed with noise now. People were talking fast, some laughing, some shaking their heads. Karen tried to pick up her clipboard, but her hands were shaking too much. She wasn't the queen anymore, she was just a lady who'd lost her crown. She thought she could bully me into giving up my pool, but I'd turned it all around. I flipped the game, and she didn't see it coming. This was my moment, and it felt awesome. Okay, friends, we're at the part where everything gets wrapped up. After that big HOA meeting where I surprised Karen, the next step was court. Court day came super fast like, zoom, it was here before I knew it. I was ready, though. I'd been waiting for this chance to show everyone that Karen couldn't push me around. She'd been mean, sending me nasty letters and fake fines, but now it was time for her to face the music. I couldn't wait to see what happened. When I got to the courthouse, there she was, Karen. She walked in all smug, like she thought she was still the boss. Her chin was up, and she had that sneaky smile, like she was sure she'd talk her way out of trouble. She probably thought the judge would listen to her and say, "Oh, Karen, you're right, Jake's the bad guy." But nope, I wasn't worried. I had stuff to show the judge, real proof that she was wrong. I brought those mean letters she'd sent me, all crumpled and angry. I had photos of my pool, showing how nice and clean it was. And guess what? I even had some neighbors who came with me. They'd seen Karen being bossy and unfair, and they were ready to tell the truth. The courtroom was a big, quiet place with tall ceilings and wooden benches. The judge sat up high, wearing a black robe, looking super serious. Karen went first, talking fast. "Jake broke the rules," she said. "His pool's an eyesore, and I was just doing my job." She waved her hands around, trying to sound smart. But the judge didn't look happy. He leaned forward, squinting at her, like he wasn't buying her story. Then it was my turn. I stood up, holding my proof tight. "Judge," I said, keeping it simple, "my pool's not permanent. Rule 47B doesn't count for it. Karen's been mean to me for no reason. She fined me and bugged me, and it's not fair." I showed him the letters, those nasty notes where Karen told me to drain my pool or else. I held up the photos, pointing at my sparkly pool and neat deck. "Look," I said, "it's not ugly. She just didn't like it." Then my neighbors spoke. Mrs. Carter, who used to glare at me, said, "Karen told us Jake was bad, but his pool's fine. She yelled at him too much." Mr. Johnson nodded. "She's always bossing us around," he said. "It's not right." The judge listened to every word, writing stuff down, his face all serious. Karen tried to argue back. "They're lying," she shouted. "I'm in charge of the HOA. I make the rules." But the judge shook his head. He held up his hand to stop her, and his voice was loud and clear. "Ma'am," he said, looking right at her, "you abused your power. That's not how HOAs work. You can't just make up fines and bother people for no good reason." Karen's mouth dropped open. She didn't know what to say. Her smug smile was gone, and she looked small like a kid caught sneaking cookies. Then came the big moment, the verdict. That's when the judge says who wins. He looked at me, then at Karen, and said, "Jake's right. His pool doesn't break the rules. Karen, you have to pay him back every penny of those fines." But wait, it got better. "And," he added, "you have to pay extra for all the trouble you caused him." Whoa. The room got noisy, people whispering, some clapping. Karen's face turned red, then white. She had to give me money, lots of it. I walked out of that courthouse with a fat check in my hand, smiling big. My pool? Still standing tall in my backyard, ready for me to jump in anytime. When I got back home, things started changing fast. Karen's reign was over, you know, like when a king or queen loses their crown. She wasn't the big boss anymore. The neighbors saw what happened in court, and they stopped listening to her. She'd walk around with her clipboard, saying stuff like, "Cut your grass," or "Move that bike." But nobody cared. They'd just wave and keep doing what they wanted. Mr. Johnson even put up a silly lawn flamingo, something Karen hated, and she couldn't stop him. She tried yelling a few times, but people ignored her. Her power was gone, poof, like magic. About a month later, Karen quit the HOA. Yep, she gave up. She didn't want to be the boss anymore, not after everyone saw she'd been wrong. I heard she moved her clipboard to a new hobby, like knitting or something quiet. Good for her, I guess. Me. I was happy as could be. My pool was safe, my money was back, and I didn't have to deal with her mean rules anymore. The street felt different now, nicer, freer, like we could all just enjoy our homes without someone barking at us. To celebrate, I threw a pool party. Oh yeah, it was the best. I invited everyone, well, almost everyone. Karen didn't get an invite, of course. The neighbors came over, splashing in my pool, laughing and eating snacks. Mrs. Carter brought cookies, and Mr. Johnson showed up with his goofy flamingo hat. We played music, swam until the sun went down, and had so much fun. The water sparkled, just like always, and nobody glared at me anymore. They smiled instead, saying stuff like, "Jake, you did it, and this pool's awesome." It felt good, really good. Looking back, that court day was huge. Karen thought she'd win, but I had the truth on my side. The judge saw it, the neighbors saw it, and now everyone knew, you can't just push people around and expect to get away with it. I got my money, kept my pool, and showed Karen she wasn't as big as she thought. Justice was served like a big, yummy dessert after a long fight. My backyard was mine again, and I could swim whenever I wanted, no worries at all. The party ended with everyone waving goodbye, still laughing and dripping from the pool. I stood by the water, looking at it shine under the moon. Karen was gone, her rules were done, and I'd won. It was the perfect ending to a crazy adventure, one I'd never forget. Hey there, friends. We've made it to the end of my story, and now it's time to think about what it all means. I've told you about Karen and my pool, how she tried to boss me around, and how I fought back and won. But this isn't just about a pool or some silly rules. Nope, it's bigger than that. It's about something we can all learn from. So, grab a snack, sit back, and let's talk about it. This part's going to make you feel strong and ready for anything. Here's the thing, sometimes the loudest people act like they're untouchable. You know, the type always yelling, always telling everyone what to do, thinking they're the biggest and the best. Karen was like that. She walked around our street with her clipboard, acting like she could never be wrong. She was loud and pushy, and she thought that made her powerful. She thought nobody could stop her, not me, not anyone. But guess what? She was wrong. Loud doesn't mean right. Loud doesn't mean you win. Sometimes, it's the quiet ones who surprise everyone. That's me, I'm one of the quiet ones. I don't yell or make a big fuss. I fix cars, swim in my pool, and keep to myself. Most people probably thought, Jake, he's nice, but he's not a fighter. Karen thought that too. She figured I'd just do what she said, like everyone else. But I had fight in me, lots of it. I didn't need to shout or stomp around to show it. I used my brain instead. I read the rules, found her mistake, and stood up for myself. And you know what? I won. The quiet ones. We've got power too. We just show it in our own way. I didn't just save my pool that day. Sure, keeping my pool was awesome, I still swim in it all the time. But it was more than that. I showed Karen something important, power doesn't mean you're right. She thought being the HOA boss gave her the okay to be mean and unfair. She thought she could push me around because she had that clipboard and those rules. But I proved her wrong. Being in charge doesn't let you bully people. It doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. Right is right, and wrong is wrong, no matter how loud you are. So, here's what I want you to remember: next time someone tries to push you around, don't give up. Maybe it's a bossy kid at school, or a grown-up telling you what to do when it's not fair. It might feel scary to stand up to them. I get it, my heart was pounding when I faced Karen. But you can do it. Stand tall, like you're the biggest tree in the forest. Know your stuff, find out what's true, like I did with the rules. And don't back down, even if they're loud or mean. You've got fight in you, just like I did. You might not see it yet, but it's there, waiting for the right moment. Who knows? If you try, you might just win big too. Think about it, I started with a grumpy Karen yelling at me, and I ended with a fat check and a pool party. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. You could have your own win, something that makes you smile and feel proud. Maybe you'll stand up to a bully and make a new friend. Maybe you'll fix something unfair and help someone else. Whatever it is, it starts with you being brave. You don't have to be loud or big, just strong inside. That's what counts. Let's think about Karen for a second. She was loud and bossy, but where did that get her? She lost her power, quit the HOA, and nobody listens to her anymore. Being mean didn't make her a winner. Now think about me, the quiet guy who didn't give up. I kept my pool, got my money back, and threw a party everyone loved. Being smart and brave made me the winner. So, who do you want to be like? The loud one who pushes people around, or the quiet one who stands up for what's right? I bet I know your answer. This story's for you, yeah, you reading this right now. Maybe you're shy, or maybe you feel small sometimes. That's okay. I felt that way too when Karen glared at me. But you don't have to stay small. You can be big in your own way. Next time something's not fair, think about Jake and his pool. Think about how I didn't let Karen win. You can do that too. You've got your own pool to save, maybe not a real one, but something you care about. Stand up for it, and watch what happens. What do you think? Would you have fought back like I did? Picture yourself in my shoes. Karen's yelling, the neighbors are staring, and your pool's on the line. Would you sit quiet, or would you stand up and say, "No way"? I want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me what you'd do, or maybe share a time you were brave. I bet you've got some cool stories. And if this tale got you excited, if it fired you up and made you feel strong, hit that like button. It's a little way to say, "Jake, I love this." This isn't goodbye, it's just see you later. I've got more stories to tell, and I hope you'll stick around for them. Life's full of adventures, and sometimes you've got to fight for what's yours. I did it with my pool, and you can do it too. So, go out there, be brave, and don't let the Karens of the world push you down. You're tougher than you think, and I'm cheering for you. See you in the next one, friends.